The resolution is following the guidelines of the Coalition for LGBT Concerns to state, open and affirming, that the focus is on a population that has been excluded from the church in many, many ways. So we wrote it along those guidelines. Some churches have chosen to expand that, and that could, that could be the will of this body if you wish to make an amendment.
Nick? And in accordance with annual meeting and General Synod, if you could identify yourself and your local church.
I'm Nick Casherling, my local church. Okay, let's see. Westminster in Spokane. My dad's the minister in Colville, and then I go to Pullman when I'm down in school, like right now. So 3 churches, I guess.
Or churches.
In the first, therefore be it resolved, I just find it important to state what we believe right away. Like later on it mentions gender identity and those things, but I think gender identity is something that gets ignored a lot, and I think it should be at the beginning, at the forefront of the conversation. And I realize there's certain guidelines that go along with ONA, and I was also thinking maybe adding something like intersex or the word queer, which has historically been used to put down people, but is being reclaimed again, and a lot of people my age at the University of Idaho specific tend to use the word queer instead of gay when they talk about the whole community, and they view it as more all-encompassing. So there are just a couple of suggestions I think that could be added.
Any response to? Okay.
My name's Andrew Holcomb. I'm a member of First Congregational Church of Bellingham. When I heard the presentation, I really appreciate it. We're an open, affirming congregation, and we've been that way for a while, longer than I've been there. One thing that I would like us to consider, however, is when we use words like right or the good thing to do, every one of you has a different opinion of what that means. We don't own Christianity. We don't own the interpretation of the Bible. We don't own reality. And I think I probably believe different things than every one of you. While I am totally in support in myself and in my congregation of our being open and affirming, I am concerned that what this is going to do, although the further be it resolved, which is the third one, says they can make the decision in their own time, I'm concerned that what's going to happen is that churches in this conference that are not ready to be open and affirming, because it is a process, it is a coming to terms with the identity of the church, the identity of all of the parishioners of that church, and a commitment to support people, not just a saying that we support people and a sign outside, but it is a real commitment to be ready to welcome people. And I'm telling you, Davida has told you, welcoming people is not an easy thing. It is something that you learn to do to become connected. And I have a concern that I would like to raise up, that we do not push people to be open and affirming, because what I'm afraid will happen is it will say open and affirming on the outside, and it will not be open and affirming on the inside. And people will come to that church, they will experience that they are not welcome, they will leave, and open and affirming will become meaningless. Also, I would like to remind us all that we are to welcome our conservative brothers and sisters in Christ, and that we are to engage them in dialogue, not to expound our values as right or correct or moral. We need to think about when we use those terms, because that has very strong meanings for us and for others. That if we really want dialogue, we cannot draw very strict lines, although they may line up with our political, moral, and social beliefs. I just want to raise that up. Thank you.
And one thing I would say in response on resolutions, in a similar fashion, that the General Synod of the United Church of Christ speaks to conferences and local congregations. A resolution such as this is speaking for the conference and not mandating action for local congregations. As Davida would say, it's only a suggestion. Yeah. So the action, so resolutions that would be passed by the annual meeting can be prescriptive for the conference, but not for a local church. So.
My name is Greg Smith. I am a member of Plymouth Church Seattle, and I have been to open and affirming churches. I'm bisexual and transgender. I've been to open and affirming churches that only considered gays and lesbians, so just keep that in mind. Also, I would like to add 2 words for 2 reasons. The words are gender expression. The first reason is that when someone walks through that door, we do not see their gender identity. We only know their gender identity if they tell us. And the second reason is that there are people whose gender identity does not match their gender expression. There are men who identify as men, who like to wear dresses. There are women who identify as women, who like to wear tuxes, and we need to affirm them as well. So for that reason, wherever we use the words gender identity, I'd like us to also use the words gender expression. Thank you.
Ruth Ann Hill from Richmond Beach Congregational Church. I have just returned to this conference from Vermont Conference. That particular conference is open and affirming, and many of its churches are not. The church I served happened not to have been through that process yet. Therefore, they were not opening and affirming, and we never felt any pressure from conference to undertake that journey until we were ready to. So just because the conference may be open and affirming, please do not think that this is an automatic pressure for every church to fall in line, because again, we're UCC.
Yes.
I'm Megan Krause, Lummi Island Congregational United Church of Christ. Ruth Ann basically shared my point. I'm not afraid at all of pushing anybody too fast. I'm afraid some of us are being left behind. Most of the youth I know, everyone in my family, most of the colleagues that I work with are amazed that we are still trying to make up our minds to state what we actually believe. So yes, some people leave and some people come. And in order to match the true vitality, I think, that's going on around us, I'd like our words to match our behavior. And when those things are not are not congruent, then start the process and the journey of exploring ONA. Maybe that's a little pressure, but I think that's justice, and we can't wait for justice.
Hello, my name is Juan Carlos Gándara. I'm from Kirkland, UCC. And I just have a suggestion, adding some words to the first thereof, where it says all persons, including those who are lesbians. I think that by naming them, we're excluding people. So by adding including but not limited to, will also include those that were not mentioned. So I think those words will help.
I'm Cameron Sharp. I worship at Wayside United Church of Christ. I have quite an investment in this issue. First thinking I was 1, 2, and 3 of these designations. And I am up here actually to speak the same words that Nick and Greg did. And very much similar to the last gentleman who spoke, which I didn't get fast enough to write his name down. I apologize. Thank you, Marcia and all those who crafted these words. Really well done. I also would like to see either the addition of not limited to that I'd never thought of, or the various gender expressions, gender variations. Intersex is perhaps needs to actually be stated, and I would like us, if we have the time, to grapple for a moment with that in our own conscience and see if we want to craft those words into that first where, therefore.
I'm Esther Pfeiffer, and I'm the pastor at Eltopia United Church of Christ, and it's a rather small community, and it's the most liberal church in its community. One of the things I value about the UCC, because I'm a Presbyterian pastor serving a UCC church, is the fact that we have this wide, really big parameter. We have everybody who's included, those who are extremely conservative and aren't comfortable, and those who are comfortable with just about anything. And I'm concerned about us becoming an open and affirming conference, because I'm afraid it will push those who aren't close to that. The church I serve values the fact that they're welcome, they're open and welcoming. They're not ready to accept anyone who's ordained, but they'll accept anyone else in membership. And they're rather concerned about this because they're afraid that they're going to be excluded as a congregation because of what this conference is doing with accepting this. So that's a concern that I have that I want to share with all of you, that in our inclusivity we can also be exclusive.
David McGee, member of Plymouth. My question is technical, actually, about the resolution. In the first, therefore, we use the term to encompass the decision-making body as the annual meeting. And then going beyond that, in some of the others, we talk of ourselves as the churches of the conference. And I'm just wondering, who is the body here? Is it the meeting? Is it the churches? Is it the conference? Should it be one? Does it matter?
I'll try and answer this. My understanding is that the annual meeting is the body who is making the decision. But we're also asking, in that second, when we say we the churches, that we're asking the churches to continue this prayerful dialogue. That we ask that we commit to each other as churches to be open to one another, to say to Eltopia, we love you. To say, we are not pushing you to make a decision before you're ready. We want to be in prayerful dialogue with you. And that's why it says we the churches. But the other ones say the annual meeting, because it is the annual meeting who actually has to make this decision. Does that make sense?
From Everett United Church of Christ. I don't know if pride comes into this or not, but I've always considered our church to be the most prophetic amongst the Christian churches. And I'm a little worried that the Joint Chiefs of Staff are about to become more prophetic than we are.
Are there other comments that wish to be expressed at this point? I see a comment running to the microphone.